know he's also one with every other. So let's now, just before starting, I'd just like to do a short reading from Practical Occultism by HPB. It's a nice short thing. It says, develop thought, strive by concentrating the whole force of your soul to shut the door of your mind to all stray thoughts, allowing none to enter, but those calculated to reveal to you the unreality of the sense life and the peace of the inner world. Thank you. And yes, please start. Today we are doing a summary of letter number 67. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimalji. So, namaste and good evening, dear brothers and sisters. Welcome to today's session on chronological letter number 67, which we have been doing since the last 3 weeks. So before I start today is the last and final session for that. And I will just give a brief summary of what we did in the last session. In that part, Mahatma ji wrote, he explained how the life impulse, it evolves through the 7 kingdoms, through the 7 globes, and that makes 1 round. After 1 round, the planet goes into obscuration. Then 7 rounds, it makes 1 chain, which is followed by a minor pralay. So minor pralay means planetary pralay. 7 such chains, they will make 1 solar manvantar. This is followed by a solar pralay. And after a great many number of solar pralay, there will come the universal pralay. Then after the solar pralay is over, the solar manvantar begins. The earth chain arises into objectivity. Her 6 lower principles, they correspond to the 7 kingdoms which evolve with her. And her 7th principle, Atma, it is in a film of spiritualized Akash that surrounds her. Each of these 7 kingdoms, they go through 7 classes on each globe and then move to the next globe. In human kingdom, that is in man, the germ which has the potential to evolve, it is there, the germ and all the 7 principles, they are there right from the beginning. In each round, he makes 1 principle develop fully. And at every stage and every round, his development, it keeps pace with the globe on which he is. But he also has the power to develop his 6th and 7th senses in advance, prematurely. Now, we also know that the 5th round people have appeared in the 2nd half of the 4th round. And Buddha, he was a 6th round being. He incarnated in this round due to a mystery, which is not revealed. But otherwise, it is a mathematical impossibility for a 6th round being to come into the 4th round. Then after completion of 7 rounds, the planetary chain completes. So then a planetary pralay occurs. But the chain of globes are not destroyed by disintegration and dispersion of their particles. They remain hidden and inert. So this happens after 7 rounds are completed, when the planetary pralay takes place. Now further, Mahatma ji explains that we will see today, and I will share my screen with you. Okay, so yes, this we have already completed. We go to slide number 35. So after the minor pralay. Now, why those planets or the chain of globes, they are not destroyed by disintegration? To this, Mahatma ji has explained that in the minor pralay, there is no starting de novo, only resumption of arrested activity. Because in the minor pralay, everything of the earth chain, it remains in suspended animation. Even the globes are not destroyed. And so in the next chain, the activity will resume from the point it had stopped, and it will continue to a higher level. Then the vegetable and animal kingdoms, which at the end of the minor Manvantar had reached only a partial development, are not destroyed. Their life or vital entities, call some of them Nati if you will, find also their corresponding night and rest. They also have a nirvana of their own. And why should they not? These fetal and infant entities, they are all like ourselves, begotten of the one element. As we have our Dhyan Chauhans, so have they in their several kingdoms, elemental guardians, and are as well taken care of in the mass as is humanity in the mass. The one element not only fills space and is space, but interpenetrates every atom of cosmic matter. So this was basically Hume's question, that what happens to the spirit which has not yet worked its way to man when the pralay comes. So when this minor pralay comes, those entities, the spirits or the germs in each of the form, who have not yet become man, what will happen to them? So in this clearly Mahatma ji has mentioned that at the time of planetary pralay, all these entities of all the kingdoms, whatever development their vital entities have reached. Vital entities are the elementals which are composing them. So whatever level they have reached in their development, that state is preserved. That state is not destroyed. And those elementals, they enter nirvana. That means their rest stage. Just like in the human kingdom, we have our Dhyan Chauhans who keep a watch over this infant or the child humanity and watch over its spiritual progress. Similarly, the elemental world also has a similar hierarchy, and they are also watched over by the equivalent of their Dhyan Chauhans. And this is because everything that emanates from the one element, it is pervaded by that one element, and by the law of correspondence, it evolves in a similar fashion. So this is what happens to the spirit which has not reached the human stage and a pralay occurs. The development remains in status quo as it is. When strikes the hour of the solar pralay, though the process of man's advance on his last seventh round is precisely the same, each planet, instead of merely passing out of the visible into the invisible, as he quits it, in turn is annihilated. So now we are talking of the solar pralay. In the previous slide, it was about the minor pralay. That means only one chain is completed, one planetary chain, like suppose our Earth chain. So after that, the development stops, but it is preserved. And then the next chain will begin. But after 7 chains are completed, then the hour of the solar pralay comes. So in that 7th round of the 7th chain, when the human kingdom will move from one globe to the next, then the previous globe, instead of going into obscuration, it will be annihilated or it will be destroyed. So this will be in the last chain and the last round. Then second point, with the beginning of the 7th round of the 7th minor Manvantar. 7th minor Manvantar meaning the 7th chain. Every kingdom having now reached its last cycle, there remains on each planet after the exit of man but the Maya of one's living and existing forms. With every step he takes on the descending and ascending arcs, as he moves on from globe to globe, the planet left behind becomes an empty chrysaloidal case. So, minor Manvantar is one earth chain, that is 7 rounds. That makes one minor Manvantar. So, 7th minor Manvantar, it is the 7th chain. And after completion of that, there will be a solar pralay. So in the 7th round of the 7th chain, when the human kingdom will move from globe A to globe B, that is from one globe to the next, then the previous globe, it will become like an empty chrysalis. So this is an analogy of how the butterfly is formed. We know that initially there is a caterpillar. It lives in the cocoon stage, which is called the pupa, and then it is slowly growing. The principles of butterfly have not all evolved. It is still in the cocoon stage, and then it metamorphoses to emerge from the cocoon as a butterfly. And then only the broken cocoon remains, which is a reminder of the chrysaloidal case of the butterfly. So similarly, these empty globes, they remain, which are a reminder that once man evolved on these and his principles were slowly evolving. Then he moves on to the next. At his departure, there is an outflow from every kingdom of its entities, waiting to pass into higher forms in due time. They are nevertheless liberated. For the day of that evolution, they will rest in their lethargic sleep in space until again energized into life in the new solar Manvantar. So what will happen in the 7th round of the 7th chain? When the human kingdom will leave the last globe, then all the other kingdoms, they would also have completed their cycle and they will all enter a nirvanic stage for the entire duration of the solar pralay. And when the time will come for the next solar Manvantar, they all will be energized into life again. The old elementals will rest until they are called to become in their turn the bodies of mineral, vegetable, and animal entities on another and a higher string of globes on their way to become human entities. This is written in Isis Unveiled. Now, see, in the previous point, it is clearly mentioned that they will be in the nirvanic stage, waiting to pass into higher forms. So whatever was the entity in the form in the previous solar Manvantar, it will move on to become a higher form. That is what he has explained in the second point. In the next solar Manvantar, the elementals of the last chain of the previous Manvantar, they will now compose the forms or the bodies of the higher kingdoms, the mineral, plant, and animals, on the globes of a chain which is on a higher plane to the previous solar Manvantar. So the chain itself has moved on to higher planes, and the lower entities, now they are composing the body of the higher entities. And all these elementals, they will also evolve from mineral to plant and finally animals, and then reaching the human form. Third point, while the germinal entities of the lowest form and in that time of general perfection, there will remain but few of such, will hang in space like drops of water suddenly turned to icicles. They will thaw at the first hot breath of a solar Manvantar and form the soul of the future globes. So this is basically what he is explaining is the transition from one solar Manvantar to the next. There is very little information in theosophical literature about the solar.
Hello. By mistake cut થઈ ગયો કેમ છો વિચાર કરતી હતી તમે લોકો બસ મજામાં છું ભાનુબેન તમને કેટલા દિવસથી ફોન કરવો છે આવ્યા પછી પણ કાંઈ
Sorry about that.
So there is very little information about pertaining to the solar Manvantars, and this is one of the few letters in which it has been explained. So now the elementals from the last chain of the previous Manvantar, they will go on to form the bodies of higher kingdoms. So what is it that will form the soul of the planet then, of the globe? So there are entities which are even lower than the elementals. And those lower entities, during the time of Pralay, they will be also in a state of nirvana, but the term used here is like they will be turned into, as if drops of water are suddenly turned into icicles. And then when the new Manvantar will begin, they will be energized again. That means they will thaw as the water, the frozen ice thaws, and they will go on to form the spirit or the soul of the future earth in the next Manvantar. So you see the entire nature, the lowest life forms, lower even than the elementals, all of them are progressively moving towards a higher life. In the next slide, the slow development of the vegetable kingdom provided for by the longer interplanetary rest of man. When the solar pralay comes, the whole purified humanity merges into Nirvana, and from that intersolar Nirvana will be reborn in higher systems. This is exactly what we explained in the previous slide. The vegetable kingdoms, they evolve more slowly as compared to man. They have more different types to pass through. And this is compensated by the longer duration that the humans spend in the nirvanic state, in the interplanetary rest. We spoke about the worlds of cause and world of effects. So man also has to spend time in the world of effects, whereas the lower kingdoms do not. So they get time to evolve for a longer duration. It is mentioned that at the end of the 7 rounds of this 4th chain, currently we are in the 4th chain. So at the end of the 7 rounds, all of humanity will attain Buddhahood. So we can only imagine that what great heights of purity humanity will attain at the end of the 7th chain. When in our present 4th chain itself, by the end of 4th chain, Buddhahood would be attained. So by the end of 7th chain, what great heights will be attained? We can hardly have any conception of that. And at that time, then humanity will remain in the intersolar nirvana and will be reborn on an even higher system in the next solar manvantar. So all this description of the spiritual progress that will be attained at the end of every chain, and then in the next solar manvantar, at what level the humanity will be, it really defies all imagination. But such has been explained in this letter. Mahatma KH has described all this to A.O. Hume. And in the next point, he writes, the string of worlds is destroyed and vanishes like a shadow from the wall in the extinguishment of light. So this is an example of the burning candle. A candle is burning, the shadow of the candle is cast on the wall. But the moment the candle goes out, the shadow also goes out. So this is a description of the solar pralay. This will what will happen. We have every indication that at this very moment, such a solar pralay is taking place while there are 2 minor ones ending somewhere. So we can't imagine, we don't know what a solar pralay will be like. Perhaps like a supernova, we can't say. But the Mahatmas, they know the indications on higher plane. And the minor pralay, which is actually a planetary pralay, so that is the next higher chain of that planet commencing. So that is a minor pralay. 2 such minor pralays are completing. So 2 planets, they are emerging from their minor pralay somewhere at present. This is what Mahatma Ji has said. And somewhere a solar pralay is also happening at this very moment. Now this letter was written, say, about 150 years or 140 years before. So that he has written that those pralay and that state of the pralay was happening at that time. We can't even say whether is it still happening or is it over. We have no idea of that. Further, Mahatma Ji has mentioned, at the beginning of the solar manvantar, the hitherto subjective elements of the material world, now scattered in cosmic dust, receiving their impulse from the new Dhyan Chauhans of the new solar system, the highest of the old ones having gone higher, will form into primordial ripples of life and separating into differentiating centers of activity, combine in a graduated scale of 7 stages of evolution. So again, what will happen in the new solar Manvantar. The highest Dhyan Chauhan of the present solar Manvantar, they will evolve even higher. They will move on to some other system perhaps. And the next in line, they will evolve to take their place in the new solar Manvantar. They will provide, so those new Dhyan Chauhans in the next solar Manvantar, they will provide the life impulse to the dormant subjective entities. What are the subjective entities? They are the spiritual souls of the previous material world, which had gone into Pralay during the solar Pralay. So those subjective entities of the previous material world, they will be awakened by that life impulse from the Dhyan Chauhans. And thus the life will awaken and it will be differentiated again on a graduated 7 scale, and the planes of the new solar system will be formed and evolution will once again carry on. Like every other orb of space, our Earth has, before obtaining its ultimate materiality, and nothing now in this world can give you an idea of what this state of matter is, to pass through a gamut of 7 stages of density. I say gamut advisedly, since the diatonic scale best affords an illustration of the perpetual rhythmic motion of the ascending and descending scales of Swabhavat, graduated as it is by tones and semitones. See, the materiality of the earth, this we know even in our earth chain, that the materiality of the earth changes in the sense it's 6 sister planets. They are on different planes. So the higher plane that they are on, they are less material. And that is how the materiality of earth, it keeps on changing throughout the solar Manvantar, because the life impulse moves from one globe to the next. Okay. So the globe A and Z, they are most ethereal, very less material. And the lowest globe, that is the globe D, it is the grossest material form. Now Mahatma ji is saying that we can have a faint idea that we cannot even have any faint idea of what the state of matter is when the earth is being formed. And he says that the music scale, he gives this analogy of the music scale. Diatonic scale is nothing but the 7 notes of a scale. So that alone can give us an idea, the ascending and the descending tones. And this is compared to the ascending and descending cycle of Swabhavat. Swabhavat is the one element about which we spoke in the beginning, the eternal, ever-present element, which is the source of all. So these cycles are compared to the musical scales. And while the globe in the descending arc, so what is the materiality of that? We can hardly have any idea of it. We know the earth only as it is as present. And in the future, how again this matter will become more ethereal, we cannot have any idea about that. The French astronomer Flammarion, so he has written this book, Le Résurrection et la fin des mondes. He speaks like a true seer. The facts are as he summarizes with slight modifications. The same idea what we mentioned in the previous slide, the same idea he has mentioned in his book. In consequence of the secular refrigeration, old age rather, and loss of vital power, solidification and desiccation of the globes, the earth arrives at a point when it begins to be a relaxed conglomerate. The period of childbearing is gone by, the progeny are all nurtured. Its term of life is finished. Hence, its constituent masses cease to obey those laws of cohesion and aggregation which held them together. So this is how the form of the planet was created. It is due to these law of cohesion and aggregation. But when that time is over on that globe, then disintegration of the particles. and becoming like a cadaver, which abandoned to the work of destruction would leave each molecule composing it free to separate itself from the body forever, to obey in future the sway of new influences. So this is just a summarizing of the disintegration of the globes, how it happens. The particles which formed it, they will scatter. But those same particles, they will come together again under new influences, under the same laws of cohesion and aggregation in the next cycle. If you think about this closely, it is the same with man. If you read the cycle of reincarnation, when he passes on to the states after physical death, so in the dormant stage, and then in the devachanic stage, and then when his life has to begin again, so his body, his personality is formed again, the astral body, the physical body. And those particles, they come together again by the law of karma. So he has those same capabilities which keep on evolving. So same thing is happening to the globe. We must always try to understand by analogy. What is happening with the globe is also happening with human. Now, in the next slide, the attraction of the moon, would that he could know the full extent of its pernicious influence, would itself undertake the task of demolition by producing a tidal wave of earth particles instead of an aqueous tide. So that disintegration of the globe, which we were speaking about, so Mahatma Ji says that the moon has a very pernicious influence, a very harmful influence. We all know that the pull of the moon, it causes tides in the ocean. That means the water level rises and ebbs. But that lunar influence is so harmful that the lunar influence would itself be sufficient to cause the earth particles to rise and ebb. So it would scatter the earth itself. So harmful its influence is. So were that author to know this, so he would understand how the moon itself would be sufficient to destroy or disintegrate the earth. His mistake is that he believes a long time must be devoted to the ruin of the solar system. His meaning that French astronomer Flammarion. He thinks that a long time will be required for the destruction of the solar system. But we are told that it occurs in the twinkling of an eye, but not without many preliminary warnings. That is quite a revelation. A solar pralay, it will occur in the twinkling of an eye. Now, what can give us an idea of that? Consider an earthquake. Earthquakes are very frequent on Earth. So many times we have seen these earthquakes happen, and on the Richter scale, it is a logarithmic scale. So even a 1 point increase will increase the energy released in the earthquake many-fold. An intense earthquake, it can flatten entire cities in a matter of few seconds. So can you imagine what will be the energy during a solar pralay? The entire solar system is wiped out in the twinkling of an eye. So if Mahatma Ji is saying, then yes, that would be the case. And the only analogy I could think of was to compare it to an earthquake. But he says that before the solar pralay takes place, there will be preliminary warnings. Now, these warnings, again, whether man can understand them or it is only the higher beings who can understand them and take due recourse. Then last point, another error is the supposition that the earth will fall into the sun. The sun itself is first to disintegrate in the solar pralay. So the speculation that the sun will swell or it will explode and all the inner planets will be engulfed by the sun, that is unfounded. That is not the case. In fact, the sun itself will disintegrate first. This is the information which Mahatma Ji has given us. He says, fathom the nature and essence of the sixth principle of the universe. Sixth principle, if you remember, in the beginning of the letter, Mahatma Ji mentioned it is called Purush Shakti or also Mahabuddhi. So the sixth principle of the universe and man. In man, sixth principle, we know it is Buddhic principle. And you will have fathomed the greatest mystery in this our world. And why not? Are you not surrounded by it? So we are in fact surrounded and enveloped by the universal sixth principle. We have soaked it into our being. And if we give a thought to it, if we contemplate, if we can really penetrate into that state, then these mysteries of the world, they will be for us to know. What are its familiar manifestations? Mesmerism, odic force, etc. All different aspects of one force capable of good and evil applications. Now here he has listed these forces which science was investigating at the time. Mesmerism is animal magnetism. It is an invisible natural force which all living beings are said to possess. And it includes animal and humans and even vegetables, plants. They also possess this magnetism. And it was one German doctor, Franz Mesmer, who researched and spoke about this in the 18th century. Then also there was this talk about the odic force. Odic force is the name given to a hypothetical vital energy or life force, which supposedly emanated from every substance in the universe, particularly from stars and planets, crystals and magnets, and also from humans. So this term odic force, it was coined in the mid-19th century, also by one German person, Baron Karl von Reichenbach. So Mahatma Ji is indicating that all these forces which man and science are trying to study, they are only the differentiated aspects which we see on our physical earth. They are all aspects of the one force, which is itself an aspect of the sixth universal principle. That is why he said that you try to understand the sixth universal principle, you will understand all these forces. The intent with which that force is used, that is what makes it good or bad. The same is true of technology, of science. The intent with which you use a force or a technology or any other thing, that makes it good or bad, not the force per se. And in the end, he mentions the degrees of an adept's initiation mark the 7 stages at which he discovers the secret of the sevenfold principles in nature and man and awakens his dormant powers. So we know about initiations in theosophical terms. Initiation is a series of events that takes place on the inner planes, and it mostly takes place in the presence of the masters of wisdom, where the disciple is taught and trained in some particular aspect of occult science and esoteric philosophy. And this involves an expansion of consciousness of that initiate. And so the consciousness expands to the higher planes, and the powers corresponding to that plane or to that higher consciousness, which were earlier latent, they also get awakened in the initiate. So there are these 7 stages of initiation which can be corresponded to his consciousness awakening on the 7 solar planes, beginning from the lowest to the highest. In fact, this is what is said in Sanskrit. We have the 7 lok, bhur, bhuvah, swaha, mahar, janaha, tapaha, satya. So these are nothing but those 7 states of consciousness, levels of consciousness corresponding to those 7 planes. And thus the corresponding principles of the macrocosm and microcosm also become known to him. So with this, we end this letter number 67. And since there is quite a bit of time, so I will just summarize this entire letter, because we did it over a period of 4 weeks. And I think the summary is there in the slides. So I will share it once again.
I think
Yes.
I think Minakshi should speak today's
Okay, the
topic in
translation.
Hindi. Then you
Okay.
can have a big summary.
Okay, we'll
Because
do
we
that.
have more than 20 minutes.
All right. So thank you very much. Now, Meenakshi ji, may I request you to give us the summary in Hindi?
नमस्ते, थैंक यू सिस्टर। आज हम लेटर नंबर 67 का उर्वरित भाग ले रहे हैं। मास्टर कहते हैं, लघु प्रलय पर नए सिरे से शुरुआत नहीं होती है, केवल थमी हुई गतिविधि का पुनः आरंभ होता है। लघु मनवंतर के अंत में जो वनस्पति और पशु किंगडम्स केवल आंशिक रूप से विकसित हुए थे, वे नष्ट नहीं होते हैं। उनके प्राण या जीवन सत्व सत्ताएं, आप चाहे तो इन्हें नाती कहे, इनके भी अपनी रात्रि और विश्राम होता है, उनका भी अपना निर्वाण होता है। इन शैशव सत्ताओं के साथ ऐसा क्यों न हो? वे सब हमारे जैसे ही परम तत्व से उत्पन्न हुए हैं। जैसे हमारे ध्यान चौहान होते हैं, वैसे ही उनके अनेकों किंगडम्स में एलिमेंटल पालक होते हैं और उनकी सार्वजनिक रूप में वैसे ही देखभाल की जाती है जैसे कि मानव जाति की होती है। वह परम तत्व न केवल स्पेस में व्याप्त है और वो ही स्पेस है, बल्कि ब्रह्मांडीय पदार्थ के प्रत्येक परमाणु में आर पार व्याप्त है। जब सौर प्रलय का समय आता है, तब अपने आखिरी 7वें राउंड में मनुष्य की उन्नति की प्रक्रिया निश्चित ही समान होती है। जब वह इसे छोड़ता है, तब प्रत्येक ग्रह केवल दृश्यमान से अदृश्य होने के बजाय वह बदले में नष्ट होता है। 7वें लघु मनवंतर के 7वें राउंड शुरू होने पर प्रत्येक किंगडम अब अपने अंतिम चक्र में पहुंचने पर मनुष्य के निकल जाने के बाद प्रत्येक ग्रह पर पहले कभी जीवित रहे अस्तित्वों की केवल माया मात्र बची रहती है। एक ग्लोब से दूसरे ग्लोब की ओर अवरोही और आरोही चाप में जैसे जैसे वह आगे बढ़ता है, तब पीछे छूटा हुआ खाली कोश बन जाता है। उसके यानी मानव के प्रस्थान पर प्रत्येक किंगडम की सत्ताओं का निर्गम होता है। उचित समय में उच्च रूपों में रूपांतरित होने की प्रतीक्षा में वे फिर भी मुक्त है। विकास के उस दिन तक वे स्पेस में अपनी सुस्त नींद में तब तक आराम करेंगे जब तक कि वे नए सौर मनवंतर में पुनः सक्रिय न हो जाए। पहले वाले एलिमेंटल्स तब तक विराम लेंगे जब तक कि उन्हें मनुष्य बनने की राह में खनिज, वनस्पति और पशु इकाइयों की श्रृंखला में यानी ग्लोब्स की श्रृंखला में एक अन्य और उच्चतर ग्लोब पर बनने के लिए बुलाया नहीं जाता है। जबकि निम्नतम रूपों की पहली अवस्थाओं की इकाइयां और सामान्य पूर्णत्व के उस समय में ऐसे बहुत कम ही बनी रहेगी। जैसे पानी की बूंदें अचानक बर्फ के टुकड़े बनते हैं, वैसे वे स्पेस में लटकी रहेगी। वे सौर मनवंतर की पहली उष्ण श्वास में पिघलेंगे और भविष्य में बनने वाले ग्लोब्स का जीवन बनेंगे। वनस्पति किंगडम का धीमा विकास मनुष्य के लंबे आंतरग्रहीय विराम द्वारा प्रदान किया गया है। जब सौर प्रलय आता है, तब पूरी विशुद्ध मानवता निर्वाण में विलीन हो जाती है और उस अंतर सौर निर्वाण से उच्चतर प्रणालियों में उनका पुनर्जन्म होगा। जैसे गायब प्रकाश के बुझने पर दीवार से छाया जैसे गायब हो जाती है, वैसे ग्लोब्स की श्रृंखला नष्ट और गायब हो जाती है। हमारे पास इस बात का पूरा संकेत है कि इस समय कहीं पर ऐसा सौर प्रलय हो रहा है, जबकि कहीं 2 लघु प्रलय समाप्ति पर है। सौर मनवंतर के प्रारंभ में भौतिक जगत के तब तक के सब्जेक्टिव एलिमेंट्स अब कॉस्मिक डस्ट में बिखरे हुए हैं। नए सौर मंडल के नए ध्यान चौहानों से जो पहले वाले सौर मंडल के उच्चतम बने हैं, उनके संवेग प्राप्त कर रहे हैं। वे जीवन के प्रारंभिक तरंग बनेंगे और गतिविधि के पृथक केंद्रों में अलग होकर विकास क्रम के 7 चरणों में सम्मिलित होंगे। स्पेस के हर एक ग्रह पर यानी ग्लोब की तरह हमारी पृथ्वी अपनी परम भौतिकता प्राप्त करने से पूर्व घनत्व के 7 स्तरों के सरगम से गुजरती है। और अब इस दुनिया में कुछ भी आपको इस बात की कल्पना नहीं दे सकता कि इस पदार्थ की दशा क्या है। मैं सोच समझकर सरगम कहता हूँ, क्योंकि यह स्वरग्राम स्वभाव के अवरोही और आरोही चक्र की नित्य की लयबद्ध गति का सबसे अच्छा चित्रण करता है, जैसे कि यह स्वरों और अर्ध स्वरों से गुजरता है। फ्लेमेरियन जो प्रसिद्ध खगोल शास्त्रज्ञ थे, वे एक सच्चे दृष्टा जैसे बोलते हैं। परिवर्तनों के साथ वह तथ्यों का अनुमान लगाते हैं। ग्लोब्स के सेक्युलर रेफ्रिजरेशन यानी नियतकालीन प्रशीतन, घनीभवन और शुष्कीकरण के परिणाम स्वरूप पृथ्वी एक ऐसी स्थिति में आती है जब उसका धीरे धीरे एकत्रीकरण प्रारंभ होता है। उसके पुनरुत्पादन का काल बीत चुका है। इस पर उत्पादित सभी विकसित हुए हैं, इसीलिए इसका जीवन काल समाप्त होता है। इसीलिए इसके घटक द्रव्य एक संधता और एकत्रीकरण के नियम का यानी लॉ ऑफ कोहेजन एंड एग्रीगेशन का पालन करना बंद कर देते हैं, जो उन्हें एक साथ धरे रखता था, और एक मृतक की तरह बनकर विघटन कार्य के लिए छोड़ दिया जाता है, जिससे उसमें समाविष्ट प्रत्येक अणु स्वयं को हमेशा के लिए विलग करने के लिए स्वतंत्र होता है, ताकि वह भविष्य में नए प्रभाव का पालन कर सके। जल के घटाव बढ़ाव के बजाय चंद्रमा के आकर्षण द्वारा उत्पन्न पृथ्वी के कणों की ज्वारीय लहर से ही विनाश का कार्य होगा। यदि वह शास्त्रज्ञ इसके विनाशकारी प्रभाव को पूरी तरह से जान सकता था। उसकी यानी उस शास्त्रज्ञ की गलती यह है कि वह मानता है कि सौर मंडल के विनाश के लिए लंबा समय लगना चाहिए। हमें यह बताया गया है कि यह पलक झपकते ही होता है, लेकिन पूर्व चेतावनियों के बिना नहीं। एक और गलती यह अनुमान कि पृथ्वी सूर्य में समा जाएगी, जबकि सौर प्रलय में सूर्य स्वयं सबसे पहले विघटित होता है। ब्रह्मांड और मनुष्य के 6th प्रिंसिपल के स्वरूप और मर्म को गहराई से समझने और समझे, और आप हमारी दुनिया के सबसे बड़े रहस्यों को समझ लेंगे। इसकी सुपरिचित अभिव्यक्तियां मेस्मेरिज्म, ओडिक फोर्स आदि है। अच्छे और बुरे प्रयोगों में सक्षम यह एक ही शक्ति के विभिन्न पहलू हैं। एक सिद्ध योगी के दीक्षा की श्रेणी उन 7 स्तरों से होती है जिस मात्रा में वह प्रकृति के और मनुष्य के 7 तत्वों के रहस्य को अनावृत करता है और अपने सुप्त शक्तियों को जागृत करता है। थैंक यू। नमस्ते।
Thank you, Meenakshi ji. And before we go on to summarize the letters, would anybody like to say something or add something on this?
Yes, I'd like to.
Yes, please.
Okay, so I'm jumping in before anybody else says anything. I'm just asking to say this. So, just a minute. Somebody is watching TV. All
Yeah,
right.
request them to mute. Okay.
Yeah. So now the thoughts that are coming to me while you are explaining about how the pralaya happens and all the globes. So I was just thinking about initiation. So when they talk about initiation, they say that you have to die to your previous self to become to even the first level of initiation is you have to die to your previous self. Now, the previous self in this case is our companion self, is our astral body. And when all our desires become, that entire astral body, which is made up only of desires, when it is completely desireless, which means it doesn't exist, because it has no hold on us anymore. And now we are functioning at a higher plane, maybe the mental plane. We are ready for our first initiation. So very similar to how our globes progress, where you have the earth, and imagine now earth's initiation to the next plane is its next globe, which is globe E. So it's so interesting that our human initiations are also about our sevenfold body, one by one. We are no longer operating in that body. Like in the case of the Mahatmas, they are not operating even in their mental body or even in their buddhic body. We don't know which levels they operated. So similarly, for us who are so right now worms, according to HPV, so low at this point, we have to first, like in our thing, if we have to progress to a better, higher level, just like how the earth is going to progress, we have to work on our reducing the effect of the astral body on us. So this is my understanding of what initiation is, and I just thought if it's right or wrong, or what's your opinion, it'd be interesting to discuss.
Very interesting. Pradeep ji, would you like to add your thoughts to this?
What is your question directly? I am little not able to understand it properly.
Okay,
I will. You like to whether you have a astral body while taking initiation, or what is your views?
No, it's not a question, it's understanding.
It's just understanding which he shared. And yes, Vimalji, here what I will say to this is, you're right, absolutely right in your understanding. It is clearly mentioned that the progress of man, the spiritual progress of man, it goes hand in hand with the progress of the planet. So as the planet is evolving, even the mankind is evolving. So you're right in saying that when we leave those principles, the planet does too, and it moves to the next globe. That's right.
And isn't it wonderful to think about it as initiation of the planet itself? Just think about how huge that concept is. The entire planet is getting the next level initiation.
Yes, because there is a spirit of the planet also.
Yeah.
It is also evolving. Pradeep ji, anything you would like to add about these?
I think our question is relating to astral body, astral desire, or initiation. What is?
No, sir. But the definition of initiation is dying to your old self. Every initiation is dying to your old self.
Dying to your old self.
Yeah, whatever is your present self, you have to die completely to it. Then only you will go to the next level. You cannot take this level to become an initiate. That is the definition of initiation. Am I right or wrong?
No. This is a dictionary. Means.
No. This is from our text only. Understanding from our text.
Okay.
This is just understanding from our text. So now at this stage, we are in the 4th round, and we are fully evolved in fully developing this Kamarupa body. And we are trying to reach our mental body. We are in the 4th round, though we are in the 5th race. And the 5th race, the push is towards the mind. But the round is the 4th. Yes. So the 4th round, the effect of the astral on us is very heavy. Take, for example, I am sitting here talking to you. What is my desire? My desire is to get my theory right. For Vibha ji to tell me that I am right. Or Pradeep ji to tell me, or Shinde ji to tell me, or anyone you tell me, it's okay. It's a desire.
Now the question is, we are in the 4th round. Our astral body is fully developed. But for us, we have not yet developed. Means I am very, that was also discussed very recently. Something from that is brother. Yes, little bit we may take it in page 13. We may take it then that in all the more evolved men at the present day, the physical body is fully developed, fairly under control. This is the word is. The astral body also fully developed, because 4th principle in the 4th round. So astral body is fully developed. but not by any means under perfect control. So our astral body, as we are in the fourth round, fully developed, but we are not controlling our astral body. We have many desires guided by our senses. All these things are there. Then mental body, because we are in the some kind of fifth root race where mental principle to be developed a little. So the mental body is in the process of unfoldment. Here he changed to development to unfoldment, but its growth is yet very far from complete. So, Vimalji, if we initiation part, neither Buddha specifically mentioned in Buddhist literature, there are many things. In other religions, they did not mention about initiation. Christianity, there is initiation stages also in Theosophical Society literature. So first initiation, when you will be taken the first initiation, before that you have to be aspirant to become the disciple of the masters. Then there are other development, like you will be one day you will be accepted as a disciple. Then you will be next is your son of a disciple. Then master will take you in his hand. But to give initiation, that is a very large, and the initiation will be given you before the Lord of the earth, or whatever. There is some mystical which subsequently Theosophical literature they have omitted it. But the details given in this average form of master, and fact, there we will reduce, means we have astral body, but this kama manas part, this desire, passion, all these things will be reduced to so extend so many, so that we have a more astral body we have, but more, we have a loving, we have a compassion, all these things. So that will be more for us.
I just want to put one thing in perspective, that we talk a lot about like the astral body being sort of a low level, desire itself being sort of a low level kind of thing, you know. But if you think about it, the astral body helps the mental body to develop. Because when you have desires and then you see that after fulfilling also there is unhappiness, or in fulfilling that causes some other problem, this whole process develops the mind. The mind cannot develop without context. So the context is provided by the astral body. So it's very important. It's an important stage of development. So that is why like the fourth root race is, it gives you the context for the mind to develop.
True, but in people, there are devoted persons like Chaitanya Dev, others, they can, from the astral, that is also one stage, they can from astral body, they can touch the atmic level. Like animation from the physical, she can touch to the atmic plane.
So because that is the difference between one person who is doing mathematics at one level and an Einstein doing mathematics at his level.
Yes.
Because they are able to connect that if I'm having this X experience because of this, now with this, the same principle applies in everything. So they don't need to have all the negative experiences to come to wisdom. Like we all have to.
No, it depends upon at what stage we are. Suppose because because if we have a willpower, we can develop more, and if we have a Raja Yoga, the karma, jnana, bhakti, with three we can move faster. But at what stage, in what way we really want to proceed, that depends upon us. Professor Sindhe, you can send some light. Or anyone like amongst us, they can share.
No, just I can say,
yes, sir.
Vimalji, we must think of 6 attainments. Samadama, Uparati, Titiksha, Shraddha, Samadhana. In that, why it is first Sama? See, why it is given first? Sama is the control of mind, and Dhamma is the control of senses. So senses are concerned with our desire, because the desire force stimulates the senses, and there has to be control of the mind. Otherwise, to become desirelessness attitude is very difficult task, which is at the disposal of this fifth root race. We are evolved astrally, but we are developing, as Pradeep said, we are developing mentally now. So in that, mind control is the best. And once we make the mind free of fears, mind must be made free of fears, then only soul gets liberates from the desires. So these two steps, soul must be free from the desires. So these desires must be converted to aspirations and will. That is what need to be achieved. And initiation is the dimensional change in consciousness, actually. That understanding, that's what I understand from it. But it is nice what Vibhaji has told, how the planets, they dissolve and how the man dissolves. If you see the occult chemistry atom, and there are the spirales, which spirales are active in this fifth root race, that needs to be understood clearly. I am not adding much, but whatever discussion has gone here, going on, really inspiring. Thank you very much, Vimalji, Vibhaji, and Pradeepji. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Vibha, would you like to continue and try to do it in 5 minutes or something?
So, Pradeepji, your call on this?
No, you continue, you complete the...
Sir, letter we have completed, just that it was so long that at the end of it, I don't know what.
No, just a brief summary you can give.
Okay.
I have not gone.
So I will not share the slide. I will, or better, let me just check. Okay, so quickly, basically these letter number 65 onwards, all this theoretical teaching which has been given. In that, see, in letter number 65, what Mahatma ji mentioned, he spoke about Swabhavat. 1 minute. Okay, so that was in letter number 65. He spoke about Swabhavat, which he says is the eternal essence. It contains everything, spirit and matter as well. So they are not separate. The spirit and matter, they are not separate. They are only distinct states. They are the polarities. They are same in essence, but only different in state. So that he begins these teachings from letter 65, where he mentioned this. Spirit and matter are one, but a differentiation of states, not essences. So this is what the one element or Swabhavat is. And he says that the important point pertaining to the aspirant, he has said that one has to get the knowledge of spiritual facts by personal experience and from actual observation. So how much ever we contemplate and discuss and try to deduce, we can get that knowledge of the spiritual fact only by personal experience and observation. So that is what is important, and he has mentioned it in his letter. And a very interesting, rather a very important point which he said, that men seek knowledge. They are very interested. They weary themselves to death in trying to acquire knowledge, but they do not feel the need to help their neighbor with the knowledge. This also he mentioned. So it is our duty that we must turn this knowledge into a permanent teaching. He advises Hume to turn this knowledge into permanent teaching in the form of articles and pamphlets, and we have to help our neighbor with this knowledge. Otherwise, we are rendered inconsistent with what we are learning. So to help everyone with this knowledge, that should be the aim. And another important point which he mentioned is, never allow the serenity of the mind to be disturbed. So even when we come to a meeting like that, where we are trying to understand the knowledge given in Mahatma letters, we must ensure that at least 1 hour or half an hour before the session, our mind is quiet and calm. we are not doing anything which is very stimulating to the mind, because it is upon the serene and placid surface of the unruffled mind that the visions of the inner world are reflected. And then lastly in that letter, he said that whatever power one gets, it has to be acquired by himself. Nobody can give you a power, nobody can grant you a power. It has to be on your own merit. You have to work to deserve it. Then he goes on to letter number 66, in which he mentioned about 7 subjective and 7 objective globes. These are the worlds of cause and effects. And he mentioned about the 7 kingdoms, the 3 subjective kingdoms.
हम कहीं फेरी वाले के साथ जाते हैं शाम को आप मिलाना
The 7 kingdoms, 3 subjective, which are the elemental kingdoms, below mineral, and then there are the objective kingdoms, that is mineral, animal, plant, and then the human kingdoms. All of these pass through 7 classes on 7 globes. And the way to classify these kingdoms, it is not like how science classifies. Occult science classifies these kingdoms depending on the relative proportion of the 7 universal principles they contain. This is a point to be understood. It is in letter number 66. It is divided according to the occult properties, that is the relative proportion of the 7 principles which they contain. On that basis, they have classified the kingdoms. Then further, he has explained about the total number of existences. That was one question from Hume, that what are the total number of existences? To which he said that the total incarnations of man within a solar manvantar, sorry, not for man, the total number of existences of the monad in a solar manvantar, they are fixed. But in the minor systems, that means within the chains and rounds and individual worlds, there they will vary. There they may not be the same on one chain, how many there are, the same on the next chain. It is not like that. But within a solar manvantar, they are fixed. And he says that total incarnations of man in each station or planet is 777. So if you want to do any calculations, you must try to solve this mystery of 777 incarnations on each planet. Then the important point in letter 66, that was the letter before this, he has explained how man has evolved in each round. We are currently on the 4th chain, in the 4th round, on this 4th globe. So in every round, in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round, how man was. Now in the 4th round, how he is, that he has explained in detail in the letter 66. I won't go into the details of that. But as compared to that, in the current letter, in 67, he has explained that how man has evolved in one solar manvantar and how it will be in the next solar manvantar. So the previous letter was pertaining to details in the round, and this letter is pertaining to the details given about the solar manvantar. So that is how we should correlate both the letters and study them. So in this, we are already past 9. So I will round it up at this. To study the rounds, please refer to letter number 66, and to understand the evolution at the level of solar manvantar, please refer to this letter number 67. So with this, I will bring the session to a close. If anybody has any question or would like to add something, you are welcome to do so now. Anyone? Okay, then perhaps Vimalji, we can close it.
Yeah, as usual, I'm requesting Mitalini sister to say the closing prayer. And thank you so much, Vibhaji. It was so wonderful these last 4 sessions, my hosting, and I understood so much about what you about this whole thing. So thank you for your clarity. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Namaste to all.
Namaste.
Namaste. Asato ma satkamaya tamaso ma jyotirkamaya mrityurmang amrutangamaya sarve bhavantu sukhinah sarve santu niramaya सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु ना कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्ति।
Thank you all for joining.
Thank you, everyone, and good night.
Good night.